There were many very dark and desperate moments, but that there was this new system of an army that was made up of free men, that was led in a new way, that began to take advantage of new opportunities. How Washington did that, I would say, if there's one word that would describe what he did in his councils of war, it would be that he listened. He was a listener. And it made all the difference in the way these things worked. He also, in that policy of humanity, he was aligning the values of the American Revolution to the conduct of the war. And it began to appeal to the imaginations of many people all around the world, even Washington's opponents. George III was touched by some of these things in unexpected ways. When, long after the American Revolution, George III went mad, one of the forms of his madness was to imagine that he was George Washington. And we can see something of the moral ascendancy that was beginning to happen. These men took advantage of their opportunities. They learned to do that in that much more open a way. They were very skilled, for example, at using the weather. The weather was miserable through it all. And they turned the weather to their advantage in almost each one of those campaigns. There was an old Yankee saying that some folks are weather-wise and some folks are otherwise. The American councils were weather-wise, the British councils were otherwise, and it made a difference. They learned to move quickly. It was a relative idea of speed. But General Howe said, explaining why things were going so desperately wrong, that he said, the Americans moved with more celerity than we. More celerity meant 2 miles an hour, as against perhaps 1, but it made the difference. And all of this went on in one campaign. The amazing thing to me is not that any one of these things happened, but that all of them happened together. All of them were improvised under extreme pressure and great difficulty. We think of 1776 in terms of glory and achievement. The people who were living and leading there spoke of it and remembered it as the black times of 1776, as Tom Paine called it. Robert Morris wrote to George Washington, and he said, "Thank God this year is over." He said, "I can't imagine a worse one." And George Washington agreed. And yet, in the midst of all of that, they transformed these events, and I think transformed our history. And that's something to remember.